I just finished NaNoWriMo. I did it in 25 days. I averaged 2,000 words a day, if you're doing the math there. And my goal was to do a true 2,000 words a day. Now, the goal is 50,000 words in a month. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month. This is the 8th year I've done it in a row, my 10th overall. The first time I did it was back in 2009. And it was my first time. Was just a wild experience. I don't consider myself a prolific writer. I write words. You know, I'm not great. I've never published anything. Never tried to publish anything. Not sure I'd have much success if I did. There's people that say, "Oh, I have an idea to write a book. One day I'm going to." There's people that say they will. There's people that actually do, and I want to be a person that actually does write a book. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, I'll lose count. I decided that instead of writing 50,000 words of a novel, I would write 50,000 words of a screenplay. There used to be Script Frenzy. They would, I think it's sometimes in March or April, where the goal was to write one screenplay in a month. Well, you know, if you do 50,000 words, that's more or less 3 screenplays. So I write 3 screenplays in the month of November. So, because I got to do the 50,000 words, that's the spirit of NaNoWriMo. And so I do it. So I write 3 screenplays in a month, and I just finished my 3rd screenplay this month. I don't usually like to talk about them because I'm not very confident in my ideas because I never tried to get them published. I've gone back and read what I've written. You know, like the short story stuff, I'm like, oh wow, this is actually pretty good. I can't believe I wrote this. Some stuff I'm like, you know, not bad. But most of the time, I kind of like it. Of course, I'm biased. I wrote it. I've never gone back and read anything I've done during NaNoWriMo because it took me a month of time. Now, I realize it would not take me a month to write it, but it's just daunting to think about going back. Some of the stuff is very rough, and I've just never gone back. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. I kind of like living in that limbo because if it is bad, well, I'll never know. If it is good, I also won't know, but I'm willing to take that risk. So what did I write about this month? So my first idea, usually I start, like the way I prepare for NaNoWriMo, usually a week before NaNoWriMo starts, I'm wrapping up Halloween, because that always is a month-long project, and then I jump right into another month-long project, which is NaNoWriMo. A week before I start thinking about what do I want to write about, where's my ideas, because I like to have a number of ideas. This year I had 5 ideas. One of them, the first, like my top idea, I come up with a couple of different ideas. I rank them as to which one I want to start writing first. Some years I've started writing down an idea, down a path, and I think, you know what, this is not working out. I need to cut bait. This year I did not have that. So the first idea, I listened to a podcast, and it was about Hurricane Katrina and the Superdome and just the craziness that happened in the Superdome where you put all these people in this small space and things go quickly wrong. So I was like, you know, like I think there's an idea there. You know, my thought to myself was like, you know, what if this was like a more serious, more realistic sudden death type thing? Jean-Claude Van Damme, a sudden death movie. This is not an action movie per se. It's more of a just a depressing drama, really, of this family caught in the middle of all this stuff. And I do outline. I basically, all right, I had the idea. You know, I had this idea for NaNoWriMo, and I write down whatever ideas I have. I try not to get too far into the outlining process. You know, at one point, early on, I would save all my words for NaNoWriMo. I wouldn't write anything November 1st. I just keep it up in the head. At this point, I just put it on paper. Like, I want to have the ideas there. I don't want to forget anything. I did start outlining this one a little bit before NaNoWriMo just because the ideas were there and I wanted to get them down on paper. Started really in-depth outlining November 1st, and that's where I kind of break the story, you know, because I'll have ideas of like, you know, I have ideas of this and that, and well, how do they all fit together? How does it create a cohesive story? A lot of times I kind of have an idea for the end, for where I'm really close to the beginning. That end often changes when I have it that early, because as you write this story, things progress, things develop, and you're like, oh, well, you know, this is how I felt this, and it was completely different, you know. Where we're going, where this is headed, it's completely different from what it was in the beginning, and it changes. So that one, I had a really solid outline on that, and it just, yeah, all the kind of pieces fit together. Now it did change a little bit, not drastically. You know, like the ending I wanted, I got that ending, but the preceding events, like how that was viewed, a little bit different. But I really like that. You know, it's a family, and they're stuck in this situation. Like, what do you do? How do you survive in this situation? Like, how, you know, things are. You start and they get worse and worse and worse, and it reaches a breaking point. That was that story. I can't remember what that's called. You know, NaNoWriMo requires you to create a title, and I'm doing 3 different screenplays, so you know I always just kind of pick the title I like the best. In this case, it was Degrees of Urgency. I like that. It sounds good. And that definitely would be the title for my first screenplay. So the second screenplay, the end of October, I watched Beetlejuice. Been many years since I watched Beetlejuice. It was not as good as I remembered. Beetlejuice is awesome. He's in the movie for less than 15 minutes. Like, I thought he was a larger part. And as I was reading about Beetlejuice, saw that Tim Burton wanted to make a sequel. He wanted to take Beetlejuice to Hawaii, which seems like I don't know. It doesn't seem like a good idea. Maybe he has. Maybe he would have done something with it. And then, beginning of this year, 2022, they are working on a sequel with Michael Keaton, with oh my gosh, I just lost it. Winona Ryder. And there's going to be the Jersey Devil, and Will Arnett might play the Jersey Devil. It's kind of a wild thing. And I began thinking, like, well, these seem like bad ideas for a sequel. What would a good idea for a sequel be? Now, I cannot write a Beetlejuice sequel because I do not own the intellectual property right for Beetlejuice. But, I thought, I want to take Beetlejuice as an inspiration and refocus it. And, I can write about hell and purgatory and limbo and all these things and some demon spirit thing because those are that I own. I just can't use Beetlejuice. I can't use the likeness of Beetlejuice. I can't kind of use that world of Beetlejuice. So I kind of, with that as my inspiration, like, well, what is my view on purgatory? That's what, as I'm trying to figure out, like, how do you do a sequel to Beetlejuice? How does his world work? How do I translate that? Knowing that I can't quite do one-to-one because I want this to be my own thing, I realized, well, I just need to focus on what would purgatory be? What would that look like? And if you have this rogue character in purgatory just causing trouble, what would that look like? The Beetlejuice, the outline, I did not get a full outline. I didn't quite break that story. I mean, I like to break the story when I have break the story. Well, I know when I start writing, I've got this overarching outline that's always going to keep me on track. Beetlejuice, I never broke the story. I got the first half, kind of the first third, and I didn't have anything else. And so as I'm writing this and keeping in the back of my mind, I got to figure out, where does this go? Because I am, my main character was Mona Ceres. I kind of like that, Beetlejuice, similar name. Again, I want to try to distance it if I can, in case this ever gets picked up. I'd have to actually do work to get this picked up, but whatever. I like to think ahead. And I got to the end, about midway, I was like, all right, this could be one potential ending. I got to the end. This screenplay would need a lot of work. It was very much a discovery as I went along, and I get to the end like, wow, there's something here. It is very, very rough. It needs to be cleaned up. But I had to get out of that one because it was tough. It was becoming a chore to write. Like the first screenplay, man, I hit 2,000 words, if not more, easy every night. And the Beetlejuice sequel is where it started to slow down, and it just became very much a chore. The third, so originally I had an idea of, if you have the Superdome and what's happening in the Superdome and what's happening outside the Superdome. And that was something I was like, that seems interesting. At the same time, I started playing Days Gone at the beginning of November. I was like, this is like zombies and motorcycles, and it's like kind of the Walking Dead type thing. I like that. The very first story I ever did for NaNoWriMo back in 2009, that was zombies. And the problem, especially The Walking Dead has, is how you handle gas and guns and like this deteriorating world. And they kind of take some liberties. I'm like, I'll do like a realistic take. Well, the problem is, zombies have been done. As I sat down to start writing this and like figure out breaking the story, I was like, I just don't want to do zombies. Days Gone, it's like, oh, they're mutated humans, but I didn't want to do that. So I was like, all right, what if I combine this Days Gone idea with zombies and all this stuff, and this, what's happening outside the Superdome? Like, what if I combine those two things? Like, what does that look like? And what I came up with, and I really like this, is I don't quite want to say a Waterworld scenario because that gives you you think of Waterworld as a rough movie, and I don't want to subject my little idea to that. But it's just these two guys surviving in a world where I didn't want to delve into the whys, the whats. Just this is what it is. This is the world. I'm going to say the polar ice caps have melted. The water level has risen. The whole world is not flooded, but the water level has risen to where the seas have come in, that type thing. And there's these two guys surviving in a world where there's a lot more water, and there's no zombies at all, but you're just battling other human beings. That's like The Walking Dead kind of hints that like the worst part are the other human beings. So I wanted to delve into that. And what does that adventure look like? And that outline was better than Beetlejuice, not as good as my first screenplay, but I kind of had an overall idea of where I wanted the story to go. I wanted to very much look at what would their daily life be like. And for this one, I did a little bit of research as far as how long does gasoline, how long does that work? And they're like, what is it, Fear the Walking Dead, they had like a oil refinery, which I'm like, this seems a bit of a stretch, a bit of fantasy. And so I looked at, gasoline and creating gunpowder, how easy it is. Like, if you're living on your own, like kind of survival type thing, could you do these things? My conclusion was, no, you can't, but you could convert an engine to an alcohol fuel, and if you're distilling alcohol, which you potentially could do on your own, like that seemed feasible. So I tackled the story that way. And they have a boat and they fuel it by alcohol because I think that could be done. I mean, I didn't get too deep into the weeds because, again, I got to write 2,000 words. I can't spend all this time researching because I got to produce. But that's the story. And the whole thing, I don't quite know how to end it. I'm like, are they surviving? Are they, what was it? It's so eloquent in my writing, but are they surviving? Are they thriving? Or is it somewhere in between? Something like that. And that's like, even up to then, it's like, which is it? I don't know. As I'm getting to the last few scenes, because once I get to about 45,000 words, it's like, all right, man, let's fire this thing up. I'm ready to be done. And it's funny, like, in all the years I've done it, it doesn't matter where I think the story is, whether I think it's close to the end or middle or anything. Like, once I hit 48,000 words, like, I'm ready to be done with this thing. And that one, I kind of had a flow of where I thought it was going. I was like, all right, boom, pencils down, this is done. And I left it where they're not thriving for sure. They're surviving. And it looks doubtful. And so I left it open-ended where if you are optimistic, you're going to think, well, they're going to make it. And if you're pessimistic, you're going to think, they're not going to make it. And I like that. And it seemed fitting for what this thing is, what this story is, the journey these people have had. And, as I'm writing all of these, any of them, I'm always kind of making some notes in the margins, proverbially, like, oh, yeah, I need to fix this, or I need to fix that, or like, this is the goal. Is this meeting my intended goal here? And, because I can't go back and read it all. If I were ever try to make something of this, I would. But I've yet to do that, and I've never gone back and read anything. But, like, I'm making notes so that if I ever did, I know what I'm doing. Because, like, I know my intention, and a lot of them, like, I don't think I'm hitting my intention. Sometimes I think I am. But that is NaNoWriMo, and I encourage everybody to do it. Even if you only write 10 words. Those are 10 words you would not have written otherwise. So next year, 2023, NaNoWriMo, like, just write 10 words. Write a poem. Write something. Because it's something you wouldn't have written otherwise. At this point, it's just become standard that October is Halloween costume, month-long project. November is NaNoWriMo, that month-long project. And I would say, most time it takes me about an hour to write 1,000 words. So if I had 50,000 words, that is 50 hours. That certainly tracks. I would think some of that has probably taken me longer because I know, like, the best scenario for me to write. I have a playlist of instrumental music. I put that on, put the headphones on, and I write. Well, even though I know that's the best way to write, sometimes I want to watch TV while I write. Is that as efficient as it could be? No, it's not. Is it what I want to do? Yes, it is. Do I realize the inefficiency there? Yes, I do. It's what I do. So that was my NaNoWriMo this year. It is done. It's fun. And at this point, I've done it 10 years total. I started doing screenplays like 3 or 4 years ago, so I probably have done... if I did it 4 years ago, I've done at least 12 scripts, probably. Yeah, I usually do about 3 scripts a year. Like, sometimes I have a couple half scripts. I think one year maybe I did 3.5. So I've gotten about 3 scripts, or 12 scripts through a year. And because I said initially, I was like, once I get to 10 scripts, I feel like then I've kind of done enough where I have a feel for it, where I know when I need to be hitting certain story beats, that then I'm going to go back and, like, try to make some of it and, like, see, are these good? Because the only way I know if it's good, you have to compare to other people. And maybe it's like, if people don't like say, oh, they just don't get my vision, blah, 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 whatever. But the only way to compare is to compare to other people, to compete, and all that stuff. And that's what you got to do. And I just haven't gone back and done that. But there are probably 3 or 4 ideas that I'll think about. I'm like, oh, man, you know what? That was a good idea. I don't know if the script I wrote was good, but the idea was good. And if the idea is good, that seed you can build out. And there's sometimes I think, like, to really test my skill, just take, like, a bad idea. What can I do with it? Or take anything. I've tried different genres, tried to stretch myself. Like, sometimes just, I like this idea, I want to build it. But I kind of feel like any idea, if you're good, you can build it to be something. Now, I'm not saying I'm good and I could do that, but I enjoy the process. And the only thing I've ever gone back in mine and read is short stories. I used to write a bunch of those. Don't write anything now. The only time I write is NaNoWriMo. But, like, some of my short stories I really like. I'm like, oh, man, this is pretty good. I wish I had to do more of it, but, it's just, NaNoWriMo makes it easy where it's a scheduled thing where you do it. The short stories, that's on me to do, and it's not like, if there's not a contest or a due date, I just don't get it done. That's NaNoWriMo. I encourage you to do it. You know what? And you don't even have to wait next year for November, Write 10 words today. Write a poem. Write something that you wouldn't have written. And you know what? Challenge yourself to write 10 words. You write 10 words, you've met the challenge. You've succeeded. You're a winner. That's pretty cool.